Today we look at the development of Ottoman Empire. And the Ottoman Empire is just one of a series of empires that developed over the centuries. And the main place for the development of these empires was Istanbul, because Istanbul has been inhabited for 2,000 years continuously. There was no time when there were no people in Istanbul. So you have a series of groups that settled in Istanbul and then influenced it in their own ways and then left. And the name Istanbul is a relatively recent, name relative to the older ones. So initially, it was called Constantinople because of Emperor Constantine, who converted to Christianity. So, and it has remained very well known as Constantinople, in fact, up to today. And if you go to Greece, you will see, like if you are in the lounge, you know, going to take a plane to Istanbul, it has an arrow, you know, that says Constantinople, because they don't want to accept that this is now Istanbul, you know, that it is now in the hands of the Muslims. So you have this competition, and the Roman Empire had two centers. You know, there was the Eastern Roman Empire and the Western Roman Empire. One was centered in the Vatican, or what we today call the Vatican, and the other one was centered in Constantinople or Istanbul. It was much later that it came to be known as the Ottoman Empire. But before that, you know, it was never referred to as the Ottoman Empire. And the Christians that lived around that time were part of the Orthodox Christianity. And Orthodox Christianity is characterized by certain features. If you look at the Russian Orthodox Church and its artistic culture, then you will find that it was influenced by the Eastern Roman culture. And they adopted Roman ways of looking at the world. And you will notice that the art has these figures that have very large eyes. And those reflect part of what is called iconography. So what we today call icons were actually figures that represented the saints of the Orthodox Church. Because now, when you talk of an icon, we mean a different thing. But that is the origins of the term icon, you know. So they say that they don't actually worship the photographs, but the paintings of the saints just remind them of their Christian heritage. So that is how that kind of art found its way to the Russian Empire. The Ottomans were were hired mercenaries themselves. So after the disintegration of a series of empires, then the leader of the Ottomans, who was called Osman, Ghazi Osman, is the one who gave that name to that place. So they were basically hired soldiers. You know, there were guns for hire, and they did not create an empire immediately. It was only when the opportunity gave itself, after the decline of the Byzantine Empire, and then the rise of Ghazi Osman. So Ghazi is a warrior, you know. So that is a man who conquered Istanbul through some kinds of tricks, and that is how they established themselves, and then they became it became Istanbul today, which actually means the land of Muslims. So it has not always been a Muslim city. And as I said, in fact, up to today, if you leave Greece, you know, and you are coming to Turkey, it points to Constantinople. They say, you know, if you want to take your plane, you know, to Constantinople, you know, you go this way. So they resisted using the term Istanbul, because that is to accept defeat, as it were. So the Ottomans managed to take over the city, and it became what it is today, Istanbul. But it had not always been called Istanbul. And then it was associated with the historical Byzantine. Much later, the empire underwent a transformation, because these Ottomans were actually invited by the Abbasid as mercenary soldiers, but then they took the opportunity to take over the place. And of course, up to now, you know, it has remained predominantly Turkish, part of what we call the Turkish Empire, the Ottoman Empire. And the Ottomans did not marry locally. You know, they brought wives from the Caucasus in Central Asia. And in fact, that was one of the reasons that later, much later, you know, people, when they were overthrown, you know, people had no feelings towards, you know, no sympathy, you know, towards the empire, because they said, these are not part of us. So the Ottomans ended up in places like Egypt. And in fact, the Ottoman ruler of Egypt was not actually an Ottoman. He was an Albanian, Muhammad Ali. So because of the weakening of the empire, you know, those who had got a little bit of power, or part of the slice of the Ottoman Empire, claimed this empire for themselves. And a good example was Muhammad Ali. And Muhammad Ali was barely literate. In fact, he was not literate at all. He was just an adventurer. And then he became the ruler of Egypt. And that was called a Mamluk empire. The Mamluk are actually slaves. So these were slaves that had been brought in or adopted by the Ottomans. And then they became the local rulers. So there was Muhammad Ali in Egypt, and then in Syria also. There were other rulers. And if we look, for example, at the case of Granada and Andalusia, the rulers there actually came from Syria because of the conflicts within these Ottoman rulers. So they went and established themselves there, and then they became the rulers. But they had not always been there. And then, of course, they were able to assimilate different groups of people to create a more cosmopolitan society. So in Andalusia, you had Muslims, you had Christians, and Jews. And the main language was actually Arabic. So some of the best known of Jewish philosophical works by Jewish philosophers, like Maimonides, were actually written in Arabic. So this is not surprising because, like today, we Muslims or Hindus or others use English, but we never associate, English with with independence. We always think, this is a Christian language, but it has nothing to do with Christianity. So Muhammad Ali was inherited by his grandchildren, and one of those was King Farouk, who was really a playboy. He was not a very serious person, unlike his grandfather. And when the Egyptian nationalists came to power, they overthrew him. In fact, they did not kill him. They didn't, they just told him, go back to where you came from. And then he made a very interesting observation. He said there would be only two monarchs left in the world. That in Britain, the English monarch or the British monarch, and the one at the deck of the cards, just playing cards. So you have a king there, isn't it? So there would be only these two kings left. The British, because by then, he was just a figurehead, a constitutional monarch. So he could not just make decisions, by himself, kill people, throw these people. No, it was constitutionally controlled. So he said there would be only these two left, the British monarch and the king at the back of the cards, playing cards. So that is how the Ottoman Empire ended up. So there are bits of it in Egypt, in Syria, and then when Ghazi Osman, came, he established what we now call the Ottoman Empire. But it was just part of the Byzantine, part of the Roman Empire until this transformation.